Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Dad Cave, the official podcast of the Dad Man YouTube channel. Today, I'm with a very special individual, my auntie, or from another family, an adoptive family, an extended family. My wife's godmother. This is Lily. She's been kind enough to join us for today's topic of conversation. Lily, why don't you say hello to everyone and just give me a quick introduction, and we'll go from there.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to be here in the dad space. Sometimes people think I'm the dad. So I'm very comfortable in this space. My name's Lilly Rivera. I'm a mom and I do other things in the world, supporting people with employment journeys. And I've done a whole bunch of other things in life. And I think one of the most interesting about me is that I am in my 50s and I'm a gamer. Um, and folks are usually thrown around that. They're like, "What? You're a 50-year-old woman gaming?" Yeah, absolutely. I picked it up when I was 10 and I never stopped. So I'm glad to be here to have this conversation with you.
Hell yeah. And we definitely celebrate gamers and we celebrate gaming in general and nerd culture in general. Any type of thing that you're into, your outlet, your hobbies, we celebrate all that. So but today specifically, I wanted to have this conversation with you because I've never really sat down and had a conversation with anybody about this specific topic. Um, Maybe about a month or so ago, you reached out and you asked for some anime recommendations, and I kind of had like a fangirl moment because nobody has ever asked me that question. So I was like, oh my god, there's so many things. But I kind of gave you a couple things and a couple recommendations, which we'll get into. So that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the art form that is anime, and because you're new into it, I kind of wanted to see, like, kind of pick your brain a little bit as to what type of an impact, if any, it's had on you. So my first question, or I guess our first topic of conversation here, is your introduction, and how that journey has progressed to today, and what initially got you interested in exploring anime.
Yeah, well, first of all, you're the first person I went to because I knew you were really informed and you just knew where to point me in the right direction. And I think for me, the art form is incredibly the visuals are incredible. I think there's such commitment to creating um, beauty in every image, regardless of what the content is, whatever the storyline is. So I think for me, I was taken in by. I feel like every frame of an anime. Movie or TV show can be framed as a piece of work, as an art, and you can see that. And I know the artists work really hard to make sure that their work stands out.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, I think it's funny because we're kind of spoiled here in the West as far as the consumption of anime. It's kind of just not force fed to us, but it's already a completely finished product when we get it here, whether it's a dubbing or a subtitle. Especially when you're dating back to the older animes from like the 80s and the 90s. Like, we're getting fully polished products here, so we're not seeing the growing pains. And I think that's a really undervalued aspect of the art form, because there's a lot of moving pieces. Old school hand drawn animation, probably is not the most efficient form of animation. I'm sure they have a lot of different pieces of technology that help with like the editing process and getting it completed and everything like that. But your oldest form of like comic books and manga and everything predate all that. So yeah, I mean, I appreciate that answer because I think it's one of those things that you kind of take for granted on how much emphasis is put into the actual art form. So I'm glad that you picked up on it, because there is a lot of hard work that goes into it, and it's nice for that to get celebrated. Where are you at right now with it? Like, are you still watching anime? Like, what are you watching right now?
yeah. You had me start with oh my god, old lady moment. you had me start with oh my goodness, I can't believe I can't remember her name.
Sailor Moon.
Sailor Moon. And I love the cat. The
Yeah,
cat's
everybody
my favorite.
everybody loves the
My
cat.
favorite. Yeah. And Sailor Moon was cute, and I watched that. But until I saw Demon Slayer,
Oh, okay. Okay, Demon
I was like,
Slayer.
what?
Yeah.
And I tried a bunch of other ones. I think the kawaii ones really, like the cutie ones, really brought me in. But I think the story of Demon Slayer is like phenomenal. And I'm glad that I started right at the beginning so I understood the context and the struggle that he's going through as he's trying to do something for his sister to bring her back.
Sure.
Um, and I think for me, that was the beauty in him struggling to become a demon slayer, to make sure that he has the skills to protect his sister. And then seeing like the powers his sister has really just sucked me in. And like I want to do it like the way it was created. I want to see the series and then the movie and the series and the movie. So I
Okay.
haven't seen the most recent movie that just came out
Okay.
because I want to see it in the order that it was created.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. Sometimes, chronologically speaking with anime, they do jump around a lot, like whether what's canon, what's not canon, so it's good to have like a template or like a path as to how you want to do it. Demon Slayer is one of the ones I haven't seen as of yet. It is on my list. There's just so many that I still have to catch up on, and I'm kind of like I kind of have not a fear of commitment, but like I kind of am afraid to start something and then like get super sucked in to where like it becomes my entire personality, because it's kind of hard to, when I enjoy something so much like that, it is super hard to detach from it. So I'm kind of like very hesitant as to what I approach and when I approach it. But Demon Slayer is definitely on my list. Everybody tells me to watch Demon Slayer. There's like a whole bunch of them, but I'm glad, like, yeah, Demon Slayer is up there. Like, people are talking about it as probably one of the greatest animes ever made, with like Attack on Titan and other things like that. So that's super awesome that you pulled the Demon Slayer. That's great, and it's definitely that newer art style. So it's a lot more polished. It's a lot more flashy. So it definitely sucks you in really quick. 90s anime, like as far as the art style and the limitations they had, like the older stuff, you can still appreciate the art form, sure, but you can definitely see like the evolution of like where 90s anime was and like where modern anime is today, especially in the art. It's actually pretty insane how much, I don't want to say better, but how much more updated, like more modern it looks. It looks borderline like computer animated to me sometimes. So that's really incredible. Um, so that's great. You're watching Demon Slayer. So before watching anime, what did you think about it? Like, what as at your overall view of it as an art form? What did you think about it before watching, and then what do you think about it now that you're started watching anime?
Yeah, I really didn't consider it an art form, right? And I am a person who's into animation in general. And because I see the art that goes into it, I know how difficult it is and how long it takes to create a piece. And I think because of like the generational differences, your generation was exposed very early on
Mm-hmm.
to the different offerings from anime where my generation wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I think being part of like nerd geek culture, I was like, well, I don't know. I have a lot of things. I don't think that's one that I want to dive into.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know the cultural context either,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
This is from a particular cultural context, which now that I'm older, I'm like, oh yeah, this is really interesting because I'm really interested in Japanese culture. So I wanted to understand what this meant. How did this artwork come? And I think it speaks volumes about Japanese culture. Um, and you see it in sort of how characters interact with each other. There are moments that an American viewer may not understand why this is happening, right? why is this person interacting with this person in a particular way? There's an age difference or whatever those cultural pieces are. So for me, it's a really interesting way to look at Japanese culture through its art. I think that's what I'm looking at. I know, like, my daughter was like, "You're watching anime? Be careful watching anime. Not all of them are appropriate," she said to me. And I was like, "Really?" I was like, that's fascinating to me because that is not something that you would find here in the US context,
Right.
really. You have to go, like, searching for stuff like that. But in Japan, there is sort of this whole, right, piece of it that is for adult eyes, made for adult eyes. And for me, it was curious to understand what is it about the Japanese culture that this pocket was carved out, right? For adults only. So, I mean, for me, it's just there's so many things that are fascinating about it. But initially, I was like, really, no, I don't think I'm not comfortable with these voiceovers, or I don't know about this, right? Like the voiceovers sound funny, or it's the animation is sort of like different than what I'm used to. But when I opened my brain and my heart up, I was like, oh, this is dope.
Yeah.
This is I've never seen before. And so much commentary on culture and gender and all the issues that you see throughout those themes.
Yeah, it's actually you bring up the dubbing or like the voiceover. So there's like a huge like pocket of like anime heads that are just solely like subtitle only, like they don't do dub. I'm not one of those. Like I'm not a big reader. And I have PTSD of like reading dialogue because all the games I grew up on, like playing like PlayStation 1 games and like the pre voice acting era, I had to read so much of it. Now I just want to kind of like just sit back and be entertained. So for me, like I really enjoy like the dubbing of it. Also to the point where some of these voice actors, like what they could do with their voice is insane to me. Like I just thought it was somebody going in a booth and voicing a cartoon, but like they're like physically trained to like understand how to compress and decompress their larynx to make sure they don't pass out. Because a lot of these animes, when they get into these huge action scenes, they're just going like 100 miles an hour, screaming at the top of their lungs, and it's I don't know if it's all one take, but the way it's mixed, like the sound, it sounds like it's all one take, and it's super impressive to me, like how you don't just pass out from doing that. So with that being said, are you subtitle or are you dub? Like, what do you prefer?
It depends on the content. So yeah, with Demon Slayer, I was watching dubbed. I wanted to hear
Yeah,
what was happening, and I wanted just to not like shift my attention,
right.
because if I put the captions on, I'm shifting my attention and I'm not looking at the art. So I don't want to take away from that. So I'm just, yeah, listening to it and having a great time watching it.
I feel like too, like maybe the benefits of having a dub, at least the way I see it. Like I appreciate the subtitle culture. Like I understand that is in its purest art form is you do sometimes don't get a one-to-one translation because there are some phrasing issues or whatnot, or dubbing issues. So I do understand like the authenticity of it being subbed, but for me I appreciate the dub because I can understand the language that's being spoken, so I hear the emotion that the character is having at that time. Like, yeah, you can kind of use context clues to pick up a Japanese voice actor as their pitch goes up and like how the scene is emotional or not. But like for me, like if it's being dubbed in English and I completely understand what's going on, I can hear the emotion in the character's voice. I can hear like the intensity, and for me that adds to it. It doesn't take away from it. There are some animes, of course, that haven't been dubbed yet, so you kind of have to only rely on the subtitle. So I do appreciate both. I do appreciate both. What's it called? Ways of absorbing it. But for me, I'm definitely team dub for sure. But I don't knock anybody who loves the subtitles, but like you said, I don't want to divert attention from the actual art style or what's actually going on the screen because it's being animated for you to watch it, right? I don't want to sit there and read it, so I just want to enjoy it. But to each their own. So so now that you're like watching anime outside of like the cultural understandings of what goes on like with Japanese culture, what would you say like the biggest like aha moment for you was like when you first started watching it to where you're at now where you're like, okay, you know what, I get it now, like I get what this is about.
Yeah, I feel like well, because I fell in love with Demon Slayer. I saw other things too, but the what I fell in love with it was the beautiful art braided like with the theme, right? The theme of family, the theme. It's not any different than watching a movie, like a live action movie where a brother is trying to protect his sister. And that's such a pure love, and it comes through with the animation. So it's not diluted with the animation. It's not right. It is really palpable how beautiful in the sacrifice. So for me, it really is the deep, deep themes of humanity, the things we struggle with. And there's a lot of like fighting and demons or something that the character is trying to overcome, and all of those themes relate to our lives and our world, right? So I think that's really beautiful. They don't shy away from things that we're battling, but it really is reflective of life. um, so I think that's what I love about anime. I didn't expect the depth that I
Mm-hmm.
was going to get in the content. So that's really beautiful, and I think that's why I'm really interested in it. And how do you go through the different sort of schools of anime, if you will, right? Because you have sort of different pockets of anime. I mean, obviously, I have so much to learn and I have
Mm-hmm.
so much to see. But I think it's my first entree into something that's really interesting to me, something I'm probably going to commit long time. Now, like I go to the store and I'll see a pop doll and I'll like, oh, look at that. I know who that is. I want that character.
Yeah.
So it's kind of nice. And recently, like a town over, they have a Japanese little restaurant where they have the maids dressed up, very kawaii, and they
Mm-hmm.
interact with you in a particular way. And I don't know if my kids are going to want to go. I'm I may have to like I don't know, wait for you to bring your kids so I could take them to
Yeah,
go.
for sure.
But all of that is sort of me learning about Japanese history from a
Mm-hmm.
different perspective.
Yeah.
Uh, and appreciating its nuance and how all of that nuance is weaved into this art form.
Yeah. I it's funny because I feel like so for me personally, I learned to just not judge like a long time ago because there are different strokes for different folks as they say, but for me like what I come down to is ha- what level of storytelling are we getting here? Because to me, whether it's a show or a movie or a book, it's still how is a story being told? Like, I'm even in video games, like my favorite types of video games are heavily narrative driven single player experiences. I love the art that is storytelling. And at the end of the day, it is just storytelling with a different coat of paint on it. So it's no different from like an American comic book or like a Spanish soap opera. It's still some form of storytelling, but that is what the Japanese culture, that's how they portray that. So it's just interesting because obviously sometimes you everybody lives in a bubble and they don't like a fear of the unknown type thing. I think that's just has a lot to do with it. I think just people who haven't really experienced it, they don't understand it, or they haven't given it a chance. And you know what? It doesn't have to be for everybody, but it also is still a valid form of entertainment. It's still a valid form of storytelling, and it's a big part of Japanese culture. Like anime has been around for a very very long time, and there's a lot of successful animes that you know are super old, like Dragon Ball, for example. Dragon Ball is my favorite anime. I think like that was the gateway for me to get into anime, so it has a very special place in my heart. Dragon Ball
Yeah.
is an anime from like the mid '80s in Japan, and then it didn't come over. We didn't get syndication or we didn't get dub until like the early '90s. So it was already completed in Japan, and they were just now translating it and like getting it off and getting it going here in the States. And the boom, I think, was early 2000s is when anime really took off. Like you have a lot of different ones that you might not consider. Like it's still a form of anime, but it's not like, oh, because I grew up with it. It doesn't seem like Pokemon is an anime, right? Like
Yeah.
at the end of the day, Pokemon is an anime, but a lot of people don't really consider it a anime because they grew up with it and they were exposed to it at such a young age. It's become such a huge part of like pop culture here in the United States. But Pokemon is an anime, so that's what's crazy to me. It's like you guys realize that everybody watched Pokemon at some point, so everybody watched anime at some point. But yeah, I think
Yeah.
it
I
has to
didn't
do.
realize that.
Yeah,
I had no idea that Pokemon was an anime because I have my favorite Pokemon, like, Jigglypuff's the
yeah,
dude. That's my anime. That's my monster, right?
yeah,
But you're totally right. Like I had not even considered that until I started doing the research, and I was like, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, I love Pokemon.
right,
I love them. How have we not known this? Where what?
yeah,
Totally. I totally agree with you. And that's beautiful the way you put it around like storytelling is storytelling,
yeah,
and this happens to be a storytelling, medium in Japan. Um which is like, we learn about cultures through food, right? Reading their history. This is another way.
yeah. Absolutely. I think food is probably the biggest unifier in the entire world. That's how you are exposed to a lot of different cultures, especially here in the United States. We just have access to so many different foods. But now, if you take that to the next level, there's other ways. Language is another way to experience other cultures. Forms of entertainment, music now with K-pop is huge now. Like it's still there's still other ways of experiencing different cultures. But yeah, I think food is like the big unifier, and I'm just glad that I'm just glad that you started your journey to like going down the road of anime, and you came from it from a point of it's probably not my thing, but you gave it a chance, and now you see what it's about. Like it's so hard to it's so hard to explain to somebody who has no idea what you're talking about, just like how to just understand it in its simplest form. And its simplest form is storytelling. Like when you break it down like to like the atomic level, anime is just still another form of storytelling. You still see like the hero's journey. There's always a nice delicate ending, there's a huge conflict, and then there's a spike, and then there's a resolution. Like it's still the same formula, it just has a different coat of paint on it. That's all it is. So um you're watching Demon Slayer now. uh
Yeah.
what's your so after, I don't know if how you're gonna, so like how I usually do it is I'll watch one anime at a time before I start jumping to different ones, because I am a completionist. I do like starting something and then finishing it, because I am afraid of getting distracted by the next shiny object and then not going back to something. So when you're done with Demon Slayer, or right now, what's your next anime on your list?
I'm not as organized or yeah, organized as you are, Adrian. So I did go from Sailor Moon to the other one to the other one and I did dip into Dragon Ball.
Okay.
And right in the beginning when he's learning his identity, right? And then I did see the next shiny thing, and I was like, oh, I got to go down this hill.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna finish this one, and then I'm gonna go back and do Dragon Ball because I think I was really interested in the cast of characters that are
Yeah,
put together right at the
yeah,
beginning. I'm like, who are these guys? Why are they all
yeah,
hanging out together? This is a weird crew. What's going
yeah,
on?
yeah.
So I want to learn more about them and yeah, do Dragon Ball.
So it's funny because Dragon Ball is tough, right? Like the original Dragon Ball, like when Goku's little,
Yeah,
it's tough. Like there's a lot of like inappropriate jokes, and there's just like a lot of inappropriate situations. But I guess that's just like a cultural barrier that we have to get accustomed to. Because I remember a long time ago when we still lived in Jersey. We were had the apartment in Bayonne. I was watching an episode of Dragon Ball with Emma. She was like maybe 2 or 3, and it was just cartoons. So I to me, it's just cartoons. And we were watching an episode of Dragon Ball, and unfortunately, um, I was watching a version of Dragon Ball that didn't have to deal with like censorship issues here in the United States, so it was still like kind of like an original cut. And Sasha just happens to walk right past me, and she's like, "What the hell are you watching?" And it was a scene that was slightly inappropriate, and to me, like I didn't make the connection, like, "Oh yeah, here's my 2-year-old daughter watching this cartoon," but she doesn't know what the hell was going on. But um, Dragon Ball is tough. Like it is definitely like especially watching it now in 2026. You're just like, how is this a thing? But then you look back into the history, and it was, I think Dragon Ball was completed in like 1983 or something like that in
yeah,
Japan. So it's old. And it's funny because here in the States, we actually got Dragon Ball Z first, which is like the second part of Dragon Ball. So we got Dragon Ball Z first. So that was my first exposure. And then because like I wanted to, study and do my homework, and like I didn't want to be like a fake Dragon Ball fan who like didn't know like the history of Dragon Ball. Like I went back and watched Dragon Ball, and I was just like, whoa, this is totally different. But um I definitely appreciate Dragon Ball for what it is. It's definitely a lot more comedic. It's definitely a lot more like, it's definitely a lot more funny. Kind of like a little bit of dark humor in there and a lot of inappropriate jokes, but it's definitely more comedic. And then when you eventually get to Dragon Ball Z, because I always tell everybody, like, you have to watch Dragon Ball Z, because that is like the gateway anime. Like, that's most people get into anime from Dragon Ball Z. Dragon Ball Z is way more intense, like, way more darker themes, darker tones, like, a lot more, like, you know, facing your demons and daily struggles. And there's just there's so much to unpack. Like there's even like issues with like race and mass genocide and god complexes. It gets pretty deep. So like Dragon Ball Z is crazy, but it's got a flashy coat of paint on it, so it makes it a little more bearable. um so that's good. I'm glad you have that on your docket, because I definitely recommend that for people. um yeah, Dragon Ball is definitely a thing, and I definitely also recommend to check out like the Studio Ghibli stuff.
uh-huh.
Those are more movies, as opposed to series. But Studio Ghibli definitely has a lot of good ones with a lot of interesting themes. Emma loves the Studio Ghibli stuff here, so we have it here with the we watch it every once in a while, like the HBO Max and stuff like that. But okay, so yes, I'm glad. Dragon Ball, definitely my seal of approval there. Okay, well, with that being said, so we talked about culture, and we talked about like the major differences between like how things are digested and interpreted from different cultures. So, do you feel like the themes or ideas get lost in translation because sometimes they go over our heads, or sometimes we just don't understand like a sense of humor or something that might just be a regular occurrence in a different culture, and we deem it as more maybe cynical or inappropriate here?
Yeah, I think absolutely, right? I think there are gonna be things that we're gonna lose because of the context. But for me, that sort of for the gamer in me, that's the game. Understanding what those nuances are, right? Understanding why would this person make this decision or that decision or say that thing in this context in order to get deeper understanding. Because like if you look at novelas, if novelas were dubbed over, there would be so many things that are lost
Oh
because of
yeah.
cultural,
Oh yeah.
right? And um, so I think for me, it's definitely something is lost in translation, absolutely. But am I willing to do the work to understand what that context is? And for me, I say yes. And that's why I'm going like so slow into anime. So I can slowly learn what those cultural nuances are in order to have a deeper understanding.
I think you hit it right on the head. I think your approach is right where it, everybody should have that same approach when it comes to anything. I think, I, especially now, like in today's world, like how everything is, like snap judgments are made so quickly, and just like, oh, if it's different, like I don't want to not waste my time, but I don't want to give it time or give it effort to even understand it. I'm just going to write it off as like it's not important. And I feel like if that was the attitude of a lot of people, we would have so much less, because the same stigma that there is with anime, there was with comic books, there was with video games, like, and now you can't walk out of your front door without somebody talking about a video game or a comic book. It's just part of our everyday lives now. And when I started watching anime, um, I remember getting out of school and getting home by 4 o'clock. There was a program block on Cartoon Network called Toonami, where they would show all the animes. They would show Yu Yu Hakusho, Bleach, Inuyasha, Dragon Ball. Like they would show a bunch of these animes, and that was my first exposure to it. And I was like, well, these cartoons are way cooler than the ones I get, like with Looney Tunes and Bugs Bunny and stuff like that. So, but it wasn't cool back then. Like it wasn't cool to watch anime. It wasn't cool to read comics. It wasn't cool to play video games. And now it's like, I earned my stripes, and now everybody's like, oh yeah, this is so cool. And I'm like, yeah, well, I walked so you could run type thing. But I think everybody should have that approach. Like, listen, it's okay for things to not be for you. It's okay for you not to understand anything. But I feel like if you don't take at least a little effort to try and understand why it's so important to so many people, I think you're doing yourself a disservice, because you might. There's an. I say this about video games. I say this about comic books. I say this about anime. There's something out there for everybody. Like, even Sasha, my wife, she's not a big video gamer, but I showed her the other day. I have on in my library a Grey's Anatomy game, and she was like, "Huh," and like it piqued her interest a little bit. And then
Yep.
there are literally hundreds of games. Like Trauma Center is a big one that was for the 3DS.
Yeah.
It's literally you're doing surgery with your stylus on a Nintendo DS. Like there's something for everybody out there. So I
Yep.
think what I'm trying to get to is, obviously it sounds cliche, but like don't judge a book by its cover. And so, like, and if you do the work like you said you're doing, and it's then you realize it's not for you, at least you gave it a fair shake. I don't think, especially now, I don't think prejudgment on anything is where any of us need to be right now. So I do appreciate the fact that you've jumped in with both feet. You've taken the time, um, and you're doing your homework. Now, my biggest question to you is: are you going to get Elsa and Olivia and Luna on the same track as you with everything?
I would say, like, if I could find like a space time traveling anime, Elsa would be all in. Like, space and time travels all like she wants to do. Like, that's her thing. I think Olivia, absolutely not, because there's no musical theater anime.
There's
But
definitely a musical theater anime. There has to be one somewhere.
Luna's the hope. Luna is the hope. I think she will be the one who will come over to this side with me. But I hope that they are open. And I think that's like a theme in our world today. We're all like, if it's different, no, right? No, I can't do it.
Yeah.
No, you're on that side. I'm on this side. And that is like the tragedy of our time, that we are so polarized, and there is so much richness that we're missing
Yeah.
because we see everybody as the other, right? Like, something I also want to start watching are K-dramas. K-dramas are something that people are like crazy about. I haven't had the opportunity, but I'm really curious. There's a real curiosity. And if we come to it with a real curiosity, then we're going to be open about learning and receiving somebody else's like talent, cultural talent, and gifts. Like, absolutely. Like, look at Bad Bunny.
Oh yeah.
Everybody, you know,
Amen.
loving Bad Bunny throughout the world and the culture that he's spreading. That's our culture. Um, and um, and I think that's sort of the lesson, that if we could open up and know that people love this and they love it for a reason, let's figure out what that reason is.
Yeah, I think the problem too is people have like their scale of validity, what's valid and what's not. Like a lot of it's so funny because I feel like it's a cop out. Like I grew up playing sports, but I grew up trying to do a bunch of different things. Like I did sports, I did music, I was a closeted nerd. So I feel like I'm very well versed in a lot of different things. And I think sometimes you make excuses for certain things just because it's what everybody else does. So, culturally, sports is a big one, right? Like you make excuses for your sports teams to be successful, even though 80% of Major League Baseball is not American. It's either Latino or from some other country. But we just got the World Baseball Classic. Team Venezuela won for the first time ever. Congratulations to
Yep.
them. And they took down the USA. And a part of me was like, yeah, like I was super pumped. Like I would have loved to see Cuba go far, but what's going on over there is it's a topic of conversation I don't really want to get into. So the fact that they were even in the World Baseball Classic was great. The fact that Puerto Rico eliminated them was very bittersweet. Um, but I was still like all for Team Puerto Rico, and then they lost, and then DR lost, and I was like, man, is USA really gonna walk away with this? And they didn't. So it was nice to see a Latino country, represent in the sport that Latinos represent in the most. And I think what drives me crazy is a lot of people who watch that are like, oh yeah, the World Baseball Classic was great. Like you realize like it's so much bigger for so many other countries than it is
Hmm.
for us. Like we take it for granted. And that's the
Right.
same thing with like anime or the same thing with like K-pop music. Like those are like their cultural phenomenons, and we just kind of ride it off into the sunset. And I think if you really took the time to understand, maybe not understand it for yourself as an individual, but understand what it does for people. Like it could be very therapeutic. It could be some form of, escaping the harsh real world environments, and it could just be a hobby that you enjoy doing. I think we need to get more back to that. Like obviously, you don't have to accept it right away without doing the work like you are and like trying to understand the art form, but just to write it off from day one and say nah, like it's not even worth my time. I think is you're doing a disservice to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. It's thinking you're getting fool's gold, but you're actually getting gold, and you see it as fool's gold, but it's actually gold. And actually, I just feel like that for all sorts of cultural art forms. That I think if you give yourself a minute, you're going to learn so much about that culture. Um, Absolutely.
Well, that's pretty much the time that we have for today. I wanted to really sincerely thank you for coming on and having this conversation with me. I mean, it was definitely eye opening for me. I'm glad that you're enjoying this journey as much as you are. I'm glad that you've taken the time to discover something that that you do enjoy, because that's what it is, right? It's just for enjoyment. And I think it's important for people to take risks on things that they might feel passionate about, to find what it is that they connect with, because that's all we're really looking for at the end of the day, right? Like in this digital age, we're just looking for connection. And if that's having a conversation with somebody, or if it's a form of art or media that does it for you, then you should definitely have that. So we're going to get on out of here. Thank you again, Lily. The invitation is always open for you. My door is always open. If you ever want to talk about anything, if you want to revisit and see where your anime journey has taken you in a few months, we could definitely do that. But sincerely, I really do appreciate you coming on. And and having this conversation with me.
Thank you, Adrian.
All right, everybody. Have a good night, and we'll see you in the next episode.